For my essay, I want to talk about equality, or maybe acceptance would be a better word, because we have a very large problem with that, and it's much broader than people like to make it out to be, and honestly, I think that's part of the problem. So, one point that I would like to make is racism. And hear me out. Because I'm going to say something and it's not going to make sense at first. I can't support Black Lives Matter, Asian Lives Matter, Muslim Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, Jewish Lives Matter, Latin Lives Matter, All Lives Matter. And the reasoning behind that is one, all of them at some point kind of have a halting. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but for instance, um, the one of the co-founders for Black Lives Matter, who is, and I say this because I don't really know a better term, but I don't feel like I don't like this term, extremely liberal. She has said multiple times how she doesn't believe in capitalism, and it's corrupt and it's screwing over minorities, and she honestly believes that there's a bigger problem with hers than any other, and she's kind of, well, disagreeing with herself because she owns several home properties across the United States, and the total value of each added together is equal to over $2 million. And for someone who claims that how corrupt and talks about how corrupt capitalism is and how they completely disbelieve in it and all this other kind of junk, I kind of feel like that's hypocritical. So how can you really trust that? And she's obviously some sort of multimillionaire because she owns properties that are that much. And I mean, you'd think that someone wouldn't buy all those properties if they didn't have the money to or the credit to. And so then you have to think, well, where's that money getting to? And the only thing that really sticks out is she's the co-founder of Black Lives Matter. And I understand people with jobs like that need to be paid, but you're running an organization to help people. And if that's what your money is going to, then, and you're consecutively talking about how horrible our economic system is, and yet you have all this money, um, and how it's so unfair to people in your situation or in your race or whatever you want to say. Why would you not give the money that's donated to your organization to the very people who your organization is about, instead of buying all these homes and properties that you don't even use? Logically, who needs more than one house? I mean, I get that lots of people with money own more than one house, but if you're running an organization like that that's supposed to have the purpose that it's supposed to have, why? That's my question. Another reason why I'm unable to say that I support any of those is because I believe that while racism and prejudice is a huge problem. Oh, and I forgot to mention a few. these are a lot more personal to me, so I'm not really sure why I forgot these. I think I was gonna like get to that in another segment, but it also has to do with this. Um, Autistic lives and mental health lives. Um, I'm not sure if those are like very large things, but that there is a lot of stigmatism against people in that community. And the reason why I can't say that I have anything for any of them is because I believe part of the problem is that we ourselves are separating our ourselves into these different groups. And so how are we supposed to get other people to see us as a person and not just this type of person, this type of being, this being that is Muslim or Christian or Jewish or black or white or Asian or Latino? How are we supposed to get other people to understand that we're people and that we matter if we keep separating ourselves into these groups and putting these other things first? This is how we identify. Shouldn't we identify ourselves as people? And this also ha- is part of the LGBT community. Like, I understand that it's a very large thing, and again, there's a very large stigmatism, but if you keep presenting yourself as that first instead of being like, hey, I'm a person, I'm made just like you are. I was born into this world. I'm a citizen somewhere. Like, it's not just a US problem, like I'm talking in a general sense. So that's like, I'm a citizen of this country. I'm a person. Like, first and foremost, we should be advertising ourselves as people instead of separating ourselves into these groups and being like, hey, I'm a minority. Well, I get that you're a minority, but I honestly think that we are not going to have any progress um against racism and prejudice until we finally say we are all people and we are people first, and we stop separating ourselves into these groups and identifying as that group, because then it takes away from your value as a person. You need to say, I'm a person first, because as soon as you say, I am this other group, that takes away from your self identity. And so people stop seeing you as a person and they start seeing you as a person in that group, that type of person, instead of looking at you as a person, as just a person. And so until we get to that point, I don't think we're going to have a lot of progress, a lot, like as much progress as we need to get over this and move past it and come to some sort of realization for everyone. And see, the problem that I have with all lives matter, I can't say that because even though that's kind of what I believe, I can't say that because there's a stigmatism against that. And if you say that, people just assume you're racist and you're like trying to make the point of Black lives, Asian lives, Pacific Islander, women. Like, it makes it sound like you're kind of putting that off, and that's not my point. So I can't say that either because people will then assume that, again, I'm racist and whatever, whatever. And so that's why I can't say that. But then, and see, some people do try to say that like it's really not that big of a problem, but I know from several very personal experiences that it is. And one of them being is I have an uncle. He married my mom's sister. Um, mm, how long ago was that? It was a really long time ago. Um, but he was born in Mexico. Excuse me. And he was lied to. He spent years trying to get proper citizenship here, because he moved here when he was younger. I'm not sure if it was when he was a kid or a young adult or what point in his life. I just know it was a while back, and so he had been trying to get citizenship here, and he needed to drive because you can't really. Um, I mean, it's very difficult to not be able to drive in this day and age, um, because not all other forms of transportation are exactly reliable for what he was doing at the time, and um, he came down to visit my grandmother, and I was there, and they at this point their daughter was born, and they had her, and they were driving back home. They live in Atlanta, and they got stopped by this police officer, and my uncle was driving. His lawyer told him that the thing, whatever license or whatever he had, his lawyer told him that that was okay for him to have. He should be able to drive, no problem. And he was in the process of again getting legalized. And um, they took them to the, I forgot what it's called. I can see the building in my head. We pass it all the time. The center. And basically, they arrested him with their 1.5, 2 year old daughter and my aunt waiting for hours. And so my aunt called my nana, and I was still over there. And so we met them up there, and we waited and waited. And my little cousin, she was too young to really understand what was going on, but my aunt, I'm not always the best at reading people and their emotions, but she was so scared because they didn't know if he was going to get deported or not, and they couldn't talk to him, and they didn't know what was happening. He was lied to, and that's not fair. And I've heard things that people have said to him, and I know a lot of what he's been through. And I understand that him getting arrested wasn't exactly racially motivated, but I mean, he wasn't a legal citizen yet, but he was still getting through that process, and you can't exactly blame him because those processes take a lot longer than people think. But we were all so scared. It just, it was crazy. And then, uh, and I didn't witness this myself, this next thing, but my source of information is, I mean, there's no reason for me not to believe that this happened because of the circumstances. My mom has this friend, and this friend's dad, like, works mechanically and on air conditioners and stuff. And this is in the Albany area where we live. And he went to the store to get some part because he was trying to repair something. Um, and he's black. That's important to the story. I forgot to mention that. I apologize. He is a black citizen in this area, I suppose. And sorry, he went up to the store to get this part, and they told him that he was not allowed to buy the part unless he could show them their like his like you have to have some kind of sort of license to like legally ow that hurt to legally work on these things. And so they were like, we can't sell this to you, like you need to have your license. And so Mama sent one of her friends, her white friends, up to the store for a very similar part, or maybe it was the same part actually. Um, I'm trying to remember the story. Um, but anyway, um, so she sent her friend up to the store, and he bought it, no questions asked, like no problem. What else are you to assume by that scenario that that was racially motivated? Is the exact same situation. The only difference was the age of the people and the color of their skin. Personally, I'd give someone who, I mean, is outright arguing with you that they have a license and this is what they do, who's older. So that really doesn't make any sense. And another situation is, and I'm not saying who it is because I don't have their permission, but I know this person who is um in a relationship, if you would say, with a person of a different color skin. And this person has told me multiple times how like they'll go out into town and eat together. Like they're not exactly overly affectionate to one another when they go to eat because that's just like public displays of affection is not their thing. But they have gotten such nasty looks from people just going out to eat together. And like, I mean, I guess you would assume two people having lunch together, like they're in a relationship, but if they're not being openly affectionate toward one another, I mean, I can get why that would make someone uncomfortable because no matter who it is, no matter what race it is, no matter like that makes me uncomfortable seeing other people displaying affection to one another because that's not something I'm used to. But they weren't doing that. They were just trying to have lunch together. And like it was very obvious that, and this has happened multiple times, that people that were in whatever restaurant they were in um were just staring them down and glaring at them, giving them all these nasty looks like, what are you doing? And I just don't understand that. They're not hurting anyone. It's their life. It's none of your business. What is the problem with them? Like, I don't understand that. I'm not able to wrap my head around that, and I know that that's not an uncommon opinion per se, but that's just not, I don't know. I, I mean, that's not something that I would be used to seeing, like, growing up. That's not exactly common here. But I never thought, or nor was I taught that there was something wrong with that, or that wasn't normal, or that wasn't okay. Like, I just don't understand.